Oh yes, this weekend the Premier League returns. A lot of people around the world love the Premier League, and I did for a number of years, but like many of you watching my channel, I started to feel a little bit disconnected from the Premier League and from these major English football clubs. But rather than just moan about everything I dislike about the Premier League, the facts are it's one of the most watched leagues around the world. It's one of the richest, and I'd always maintain the opinion that the Premier League is one of the best TV products in world football. But I'm a match-going fan. I like to consume my football live and in person. So today we're going to explore 5 things the Premier League or teams within the Premier League can improve on when it comes to a matchday experience for the in-person match-going fan. Of course, this isn't going to be a list where I state the obvious, like get rid of VAR, because unfortunately guys, I think that's here to stay. But here are 5 realistic things I feel can really improve that matchday atmosphere, because you know, when there's a big game, a derby or whatever, the atmosphere tends to improve. But I think we'll all agree that regardless of whether we think matchday atmosphere is bad in the Premier League, it's definitely not as good as it could be. And again, I'm not going to do the usual thing and zone in on tourists, because if you're not a subscriber of the channel, I support a German club, and I guess a lot of people could argue that I'd be hypocritical. So here we go, 5 things to improve the Premier League for people like us, the match-going fan. Let's go. So as I park myself down here, seated for the first thing I'd improve on, and that would be more safe standing. Now ironically, I'm sat down, and I genuinely feel that all-seater stadiums were the original kind of killer of matchday atmosphere. Now again, they came for good reason. Again, most of you know the Hillsborough disaster in 1989 led to the Taylor Report, which therefore led to the opinion that all stadiums, or the rule should I say, that all stadiums should become all-seater stadiums in England's top flight, and obviously subsequently the EFL. Now, one thing I've liked is the introduction of safe standing. It allows you to have a designated area, aka a seat, but you can also stand. You've also got the rails, and although again, being a German football fan, I'm used to standing terraces being a part of everyday fan culture, I understand that in England it's a sensitive topic, so I feel like it's a happy medium to introduce more and more safe standing. Now at the moment we tend to get safe standing in corners. We very rarely in stadiums get it purely in the kind of hardcore ends. I'm talking about, let's use Old Trafford for example. The safe standing area is generally quite near to where the away fans are. I'd love to see safe standing in sections of the Stretford end at Manchester United, the Kop at Anfield. You know, I want to see these ends eventually become completely safe standing, because I know people argue that, you know, older fans can't stand for 90 minutes, but then my counter argument would be maybe you shouldn't be in the hardcore active fan sections. Now I'll expand on that in another point, but I do feel like more safe standing is the way to go to improve some matchday atmosphere. When you're stood up, you're just far more active, aren't you? Look at me, I can't sit still when I film my YouTube videos. I move around because it gets the creative juices flowing, and you find that in non-league, don't you, that when they're stood up, people are far more rowdy and therefore more excitable, and therefore a better atmosphere comes as a result. There we go, point number 1, more safe standing. So I am still a driving instructor, and I kind of make these videos in between appointments. I found a random park which I thought was quiet, but apologies if it's a little noisy. The M5 backs onto this park. So expanding on point number 1, I said I was going to talk about the ends. Do you know what I mean by the ends? Again, the Stretford end, the Holt end, the Kop, you know, the ends, the hardcore sections football grounds have. Now, making them safe standing is one thing, but I feel like there needs to be a complete reorganisation and structure. I think those people who fulfill a seat or a standing seat, hopefully in the future, should be the hardcore. Now again, it's ironic, you might have seen recently that Dynamo Dresden in Germany banned vloggers from the stadium, and you might think as a YouTuber I'd be completely against this, but I'm not, I'm really not. You know, I fully understand the impact of taking a ticket away from a hardcore fan and how you should have real fans inside stadiums, I also feel like, you know, we have a duty to showcase these clubs as well that don't get the exposure. But when it comes to the likes of Manchester United, Liverpool, etc., there really isn't any need for a vlogger or someone who isn't a hardcore fan of those clubs to occupy a space in those sections. You would never do it in countries like Germany. The ultras wouldn't put up with it. Now, I'm not saying we should ban vloggers from stadiums, but I feel like they should definitely be banned from certain parts of a stadium. Again, in Germany, they tend to have, I think it's quite controversial, so they have kind of more neutral sections where you will occasionally have away fans in there as well. Whether it's a family stand or somewhere like that, I feel like the vloggers need to stay away from the hardcore ends. And it's not just vloggers, again, day trippers, tourists, ground hoppers. Again, I'm not blaming tourists for killing the atmosphere, but they're realistically going to be the type of people that want to take photos as opposed to get involved with chants. And again, we can't stereotype because there's lots of ground hoppers and tourists that actually want to get involved in the action as well. But I do feel like there should be some structure, some unwritten rules, and there should really be more control over the hardcore sections, the ends of certain football grounds. Like the Holt end, for example, Aston Villa, my mum always reminisces about how that used to be really lively and full of voice, but these days, due to the success of Aston Villa in more recent years, the Holt end atmosphere has took a nosedive. Now again, I'm not zoning in on like Villa on tour, for example. Max, he does a great job because he's a genuine hardcore Villa fan and adds to the chance, but I'm talking about, yeah, let's have a little bit more respect as YouTubers, content creators, and stay away from those bloody ends. Guys, by the way, if you want to add your opinions, maybe you disagree with some of my points, get involved in the comments section below. This is very much a community here on Football Paradise, and we have the pleasure of making these videos with the help of sponsors like today, Oxford Natural. Now, you might have seen me advertising Oxford Natural products lately, Optimum Day and Optimum Night. It's not just an advert for me. I'm very picky with which sponsorships I accept on the channel. I've not accepted many over the years, but this definitely works for me. They're products I'm on, and I'm getting a better night's sleep thanks to Optimum Night. I have 3 of those capsules before bed. I'm sleeping better, I'm getting into a deep sleep, I'm waking up feeling absolutely fresh, even if I've not managed to get my 8 hours sleep. Therefore, I'm having more energy during the day, but also topping up through Optimum Day, which is a product which again helps with my everyday function, not just physical but mental as well. And that's also having a knock-on effect to my healthy lifestyle. I'm obviously going back to the gym and stuff now, and I'm eating a lot better as well. So not only am I casually dropping a bit of weight, I'm also feeling a lot better, and it really is a pleasure getting sponsors like Oxford Natural involved in the channel. So if you are conscious of your health, as football fans, we're not necessarily the healthiest. I always say it's ironic that we watch athletes run around a football pitch, but us football fans are stood there with a pint, a pie, a hot dog, something like that. Again, if you're curious, check out my discount code. We've got RYFP. Use that code at checkout. Follow the link in the description below or the QR code on screen. And through my code RYFP, you'll get a whopping 70% off your first order. There's not a lot to lose, guys, with that saving. So thanks to today's sponsor, Oxford Natural, for sponsoring today's video. Anyway, 3 more ways to improve the Premier League. Let's go. Now, I know I've said this is about the match-going fan, not the TV product, but hear me out here. Point number 3, I know they're currently under contract and it can't be changed, I believe, until 2028 possibly, but I'm talking about the 3 p.m. blackout. Now, a lot of people argued the point that if they showed games live, they'd get less people in attendance, but let's be honest, getting Premier League tickets in 2026 is mission impossible a lot of the time. You need your membership, you need normally a contact at the club, a season ticket holder that you might be friends with. It's very, very difficult to get tickets to Premier League games, so I feel like that point is somewhat invalid. And I also feel like, ironically, again connecting back to the match-going fan, if they lifted the 3 p.m. blackout, I feel like those more touristy, casual fans would be inclined to just watch the game on TV. I don't feel like attendances would dwindle at all. I just feel like the clientele, the demographic, that's a better word, the hardcore, would be the ones getting hold of the tickets. I like what Liverpool do. I think they prioritise the local area for tickets. Again, Liverpool fans, let me know a little bit more on that. I don't know fully what the crack is, but I know there's definitely, I think, priority for the locals. I might be wrong. But yeah, I don't feel like the 3 p.m. blackout would affect the game negatively. I feel like it would just change who turns up to the grounds, to the stadiums. So point number 4 is one that a lot of you think will never happen. I'm talking about trialing alcohol inside the stadium. Now, I've been to watch La Liga games where they've banned alcohol in stadiums completely. You can't even buy alcohol in the concourse areas. A lot of tourists come over and feel like it's the same in England. It's not. You can drink a pint, you just can't ironically drink a pint and watch football. If you're at the hospitality or in those boxes, they put down the blinds, don't they? And I do feel like it's somewhat ridiculous. And I know we've kind of got ourselves to blame as English fans, as people from England who is a country, or which is a country with a history of hooliganism, and obviously alcohol adds to some of that antisocial behaviour. But if we're going to be drinking in the concourse, if we're going to be drinking beforehand in the pubs, I can't see what difference it would be allowing us to bring that pint into the actual ground. Like, again, if you're a subscriber, you'll see when I support my club, Borkum, I'll buy the carry case with like 6 to 8 beers in, and I'll pop it down by my feet. Obviously a few pints might go flying when we score, but still, I don't feel like it causes the Germans to necessarily be antisocial inside the ground. Again, we see when it's close to half time, a lot of us English fans will just go in early to the bar just to get a pint. Why have all this fuss? I really don't get it, because it wouldn't affect sponsorships or anything. You could kind of have, you don't have to have clear cups. You could obviously have the plastic cups, but they could be frosted, you know, if you're worried about influencing young people. But when you've got betting sponsors, I know in the Premier League, they're not on the front anymore, they're on the sleeve, on the sides, on the sleeve. But you've got betting adverts going on in between games. You've got all kinds of other stuff which isn't necessarily good for the child brain. So I honestly still don't get this inside the ground not being able to drink alcohol rule. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, and I think, like the safe standing point I made, I feel like it's a little bit outdated. If off the back of Hillsborough, let's be honest, we probably never thought we would have standing sections in stadiums here in England. So if we're now going to have safe standing, can't we have safe drinking, so long as it's monitored and trialed to start with? I feel like obviously more beer will loosen people up and therefore create a better atmosphere inside the ground. Again, let me know if you disagree with me. The last point though, what could it be? So my last point is, it's quite a vague one, I'll be honest. Number 5 is the encouragement of a more active fan scene. Now, I just read on my phone whilst parked up, the team Brighton played, the Norwegian team, the Ultras had banners up about all the restrictions they'll face when they play the return leg in Brighton. Now, that's the irony of it. A lot of European fans, especially when I go to Germany, they all criticise English football atmosphere, but we are so heavily policed. You cannot take anything into the ground. And I know the counter argument is people in England seem to think that those German ultras are allowed to set off pyro when they're really not, guys. You'll see why they don't like being filmed, because they go under a banner, they do it secretly, and as a result of pyro being set off, the clubs are heavily fined. So that's a misconception from us English fans, that they're allowed to do it. They're not, they're just sneakily doing it, and they are quite adamant on preserving that fan culture. We're not really the rule breakers here in England. We do like rules, we like sticking by the rules, but I would also argue that we're a lot more heavily policed going through the turnstiles. I've joked in the past that sometimes it feels like when I'm going into a Premier League stadium, I'm going through airport security, whereas in Germany, they just kind of stroke you and go, yeah, get in, Englishman. Whereas, yeah, in England, they thoroughly search you. So by a more active fan scene, I'm thinking not necessarily pyrotechnics. I get pyro, and there's a lot of people in Germany as well that really don't like it when the ultras set off the pyro. I've been in away blocks at Borkum, and the older guys are holding up the scarves because they don't want to breathe in all that smoke. I feel like pyro was a little bit overhyped, but I want to encourage more fan-created tifos, banners, choreos, not these club-funded generic things that Premier League clubs put up during Champions League games. You saw the horrific Arsenal one a couple of years ago. I want to encourage this creativity. I feel like the Premier League clubs could all get together and just loosen up a little bit more on those restrictions. You know, fan groups could be more in contact with the clubs and express what they plan to do, and obviously try and eliminate any safety concerns. But I feel like if we settle down a little bit on all these restrictions, it's really not going to do anyone any harm. We're not talking about setting off fireworks in the crowd. We're talking about being a little bit more creative and trying to improve our own fan culture. And I know the older guys really don't like all this for show stuff. They like the old school, no nonsense, just clapping, singing, and that is the English way. But I definitely feel like, I mean, we had a taste of it at Bristol City. They did have flags last weekend, but I don't know. I feel like a more active fan scene. A lot of these points tie in together, don't they? Safe standing in the hardcore ends, no vloggers, allowing booze whilst watching the game, no 3 PM blackout. Let's just get the hardcore, let the casuals watch it on TV, and then yes, allow our creativity to flourish. Thanks for watching this, guys. Whether you like the Premier League or not, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm trying to be somewhat flexible with the kind of videos I'm making for the 26-27 season. We're still going to be traveling around Europe. We're still going to be ticking off the 92 here in England. We're still going to be making non-match day videos like I'm doing now in a random park in Tewkesbury, about to do a driving lesson. So I appreciate all the support. Check out Oxford Natural and support your own health. 70% off with code RYFP, and I'll see you for the next Matchday Raw episode back in Bristol. Bit of a derby, Bristol Rovers versus Newport County. I'll see you in that one.